All right. Good morning, everybody. Just want to introduce a friend of mine, Don Yoakam. He's from the West Coast. Don's background is in business building with Keller Williams. How you doing, Don? Thanks for coming on today. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Mitch.
So,
It's an
so
honor to be here and happy to be here with you. And
excellent.
you're,
So Don built the most profitable KW centers in the U.S. and took what this is amazing to me. Took one of those offices from 10 agents to 184 agents in 27 months. I feel like a slacker now. He's the only KW guy who's built 10 KW offices from scratch. So again, I really appreciate you sharing, Don, today. I got some questions for you. And the biggest one to start out with is, just if you could start just by telling everybody, what would you say contributes to your success in building businesses? That's what we're all doing here.
well, thanks, Mitch. And I did have a tremendous experience at KW. And at that time that I was a team leader, which was 2000 to 2002, I really felt like we had a unique advantage in the marketplace. And so that was actually a significant part of it, right? Is that I felt good about what I was representing. Now, that being said, you just can't compare that value proposition to what we have to offer at EXP today. What we're offering today is literally a magnitude of 10 as to the value that we bring to the agent populace versus what we had at KW, in my opinion. And and I still honestly hold KW in high regard because they do have some things that are attractive. We just have a very strong proposition. And so what happened was I got involved, and because I'm a hardworking, driven individual, I got to where I was recruiting about 5 people a month, working 60 to 72 hours a week. And it was hard. And that role is just, the team leader role is just hard at KW because you're doing pretty much everything by yourself. Occasionally my OP would come in and help in the recruiting process, but you're pretty much a one-man band. And that's actually a really significant difference and advantage that we have in the EXP model is that we all enjoy 7 people that have a vested interest in our success. And some of those people are incredibly talented. And so I'm going to talk more in my process about how that can be so important to your success. Anyway, I found out that there were people in the country doing 10 people a month, adding 10 people a month. And Cheryl Sidoti in Atlanta, Georgia was one of them. And so I reached out to her and I said, Cheryl, what is it that you are doing that is enabling you to literally do twice what I'm doing? I feel like I'm already just working crazy hours in order to achieve this. And by the way, 5 a month was not bad. I was among the better recruiters in the company, but she was obviously at a whole nother level. And she was so sweet. She said, oh, sweetie, if I can do it, I just know that you can do it, in her, Southern charm and big smile that she has. And so she agreed to mentor me for 90 days. And by the end of that 90 days, believe it or not, I was doing 10 people a month. And it's because I essentially modeled her behavior. And what I learned in that process was that my weekly appointments would roughly translate to my monthly recruits. And so I met with 10 people a week. I met with the average recruit 2 times, and I would recruit half of them, right? So I had 20 unique appointments in a month and then 10 hires. And some of those people I didn't want to hire, and some of them didn't want to choose KW. But that was the process that I used in order to achieve the results that you spoke of a moment ago. And I have, and I trained, of course, a similar process to my other agents. But it's in the EXP model, we have some unique advantages that we didn't have. The process that I deployed today, in a lot of ways, is similar. I'm actually doing more appointments than I did when I was at KW. Last week I had 15. I have 24 scheduled for this week for 6 days, by the way. That being said, About 30% of those people will not show or reschedule. So I'll probably end up with about 18 appointments out of that. But, keep in mind, it's really important, and I know we're talking about attraction, that people just do whatever they're comfortable with. The process that I've committed to is what I call a 2-10-40. So I'm going to introduce EXP to 2 people a day, 10 a week, 40 a month. And then that is going to translate to a certain amount of contacts, a certain amount of appointments, and then second appointments, and so forth. And so when I refer to 15 or 24 appointments, I'm not just talking about new contacts with new appointments. And it could be one of my appointments or now that my organization, not quite your size, Mitch, but I'm getting there. And of course, a lot of people on my team are setting appointments for me. And the process that we utilize for that is that I've set up my calendar in Calendly. And so that the key people in my organization that have chosen to build a sales organization on the EXP platform have my link, and they can just book an appointment. So the process is they're talking to a candidate, they book the appointment on Calendly, they do a text introduction with their full name so that I can do some due diligence. I can Google them, check them out on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And so that when I go into that call, I'm somewhat educated. And then they send a separate email privately to me, giving me a little debrief on that person. So 3 pieces, right? Set Calendly appointment, do text intro. And by the way, the text intro with the 3 ways is kind of important because it creates a communication channel that makes it more difficult for the candidate to opt out of the process. Because what will happen when that text introduction comes through, I will say, hey, thanks, Mitch. And then I'll say, John, really look forward to connecting with you. Don. Okay, so, and I do that right after the text introduction. Right. And then depending on the day, if it goes over a weekend or not, but I will confirm the appointment in the same text intro, right? And depending on how far the appointment was away from when we set it, ideally, by the way, you set appointments 3 days from the contact. Right. And there's a rhythm that you want to maintain. So if it was within 3 days, then I would simply text them in the morning and say, hey, John, looking forward to connecting with you at 10 a.m. today. Or actually, I would say we. And the reason why I say we is because when my folks are beginning their process and they have not presented EXP themselves, I require them to be on the call with me, okay? Now, once they have been on 5 or 6 calls, they've heard the majority of the objections, and then I don't require them to be on the call because I want them selling real estate, right? Okay, but then we will be on the call together, and then it's not uncommon. About 30% of the time, they'll say, "Oh, geez, Don, I can't make today. We'll need to reschedule." Okay. It is critical in that moment that you respond immediately while they're still feeling a little bit guilty, and you say, no worries, how about Thursday at 2 p.m.? So you make it very matter of fact, and you offer a date and time that is usually about 3 days from that. Don't make it the next morning, like you're desperate to meet with them, right? You're a busy person too, okay? And so then we'll go on in that process. And if there's one thing that I would want your team to take away from this communication, it is the cardinal sin of recruiting is to leave an appointment without another appointment, okay? On my team, we call that a fumble, okay? So when someone in my organization has entrusted me with their candidate, my job is to engage with them and then make a next appointment. And I know, because of the due diligence that I've done in that call, my plan A, my plan B, and my plan C. Okay, plan A would probably be, hey, let's go to join.exp Realty and have you start your initial app so that you can receive the ICA, they'll clear your license, and then that will probably prompt some questions for your next contact with Randy Bird, who's my sponsor, right? And so whatever the thing, okay, now that's plan A, by the way. It doesn't usually go that way.
Right.
Okay? So plan B might be that they are enamored because, one of my partners happens to be a real top producer, Tom Daves. And I would say, hey, let's arrange for you to talk to Tom so that you can meet another member of our team and part of what would be your support structure. Or maybe they'll have a particular interest in technology, in which case I would send them to Randy. Depending on their situation and their interests, I'll then direct them to one of the 7 members in one of my business partners, which is another thing I would just share. There is a language to attraction. And so instead of referring to my upline as my upline, okay, those 7 people, right, I refer to them as my business partners, and my downline is my sales organization. And I'm in the business of attracting, not recruiting. Those 3 things.
Sure.
Okay. So do you have any questions on that part of the process?
No, but I have a lot of questions. I mean, that's really straightforward and simple, right? And that's the key, I thought, is keeping it simple, right?
It really is. And, people will ask me, okay, well, what is your script? Okay. You know what my script is? To be genuinely interested in them.
Right.
Okay. And so what'll happen when I open up a call, 90 some odd % of the time, is I would just say, hey, Mitch, John tells me wonderful things about you. And I know you guys met at an open house and so forth, but would you do me the pleasure of sharing your story with me?
Right. Okay.
And they will say, well, okay, where do you want me to start? And I'll say, well, you were born and then what happened? And they will laugh.
Right,
okay?
Right. Love that. Yep.
Right? And then, but that just kind of brings a levity to the situation. And I say, nah, seriously, why don't you start with your business experience? Okay. And then they'll go, okay, well, I started off as a Verizon salesperson, and I'll go, okay, well, so were you selling services or products? Right. And I'm asking that question because I'm trying to determine whether or not this person has the ability to sell something intangible, right? And usually, by the way, if somebody can list effectively, they can sell something intangible, not necessarily a buyer agent. And if they don't have that intangible skill yet, chances are they're going to have a tough time attracting as well. Okay, so by the way, I just watched a fantastic video on selling the invisible, on selling that intangible, and I'll send you the link so you can send it to your team as well.
That'd be great. Excellent.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I know you have some questions. Why don't we get to those, and that will probably fill in a lot of the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. So, and one of my goals is to teach. I mean, there's people like us, right, that are out there. This is what our business is, right? And then we have our agents who, to me, is what this is really all about as a company in selling houses. But how do we get them to achieve $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 extra a year in residual income, right? That's why I did this for my team, for my brokerage. So as an individual agent that's out there, and I know I'm not a script guy myself, so but so it's easy when someone comes to me. I have similar things that you do, but when that agent is talking to somebody, what would you recommend? The new agent just joined us, wants to talk to a couple agents about this. What would their opening line be to somebody?
Okay, so and of course it may vary by circumstance.
Of course.
Okay, but I would the opening line would almost always be a question, right? So I might say something along the lines of, Mitch, I'm reaching out to you because I've identified you as one of the top agents in Cocoa Beach. And what I know about people like you is that you're generally open to opportunity. And in your, at least from what I can tell, with your production, you appear to be what we call an icon agent in EXP. And I'm just wondering how is your business going, right? And then I'll shut up and let them talk. Okay. Now that was calling somebody that does 30 deals or more, right? The thing that I would start with, though, as a new agent at EXP is I would actually start with people that already know, like, and trust me. Okay. Brent Gove, who I know you know and is very successful in our organization, the script that he called me with, so what he did is when he first got in, he called a bunch of the people that he knew. And he said, hey, Don, I really respect your opinion, and I'm really seriously thinking of leaving KW after 8 years, and I would just really appreciate you taking a look at this business model and helping me to make sure I'm not making a bad decision.
Right. Okay.
And, of course, that sort of plays on the ego a little bit, and Brent and I happen to have been, he was a team leader in that office, by the way, that I built from 10 to 184 after me, a couple of years after me. And so that's another script. What I would say is that, and I feel like people get hung up on the script part of it, and just, you know what this is, Mitch? It's no different than getting a listing appointment.
Right.
That is really what attraction is about, right? It's about identifying a need. There's a lot of people in our organization will say that we're looking for people that are looking for us.
Yep.
Okay. How many agents, for example, have not fully funded their retirement? I reckon there's a pretty big need out there, right?
Yeah.
I think all of us could use a little bit of help in that matter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but the thing of it is that be very, very careful about trying to open by picking holes in their situation. So if I were calling you and, you had built a very respectable brokerage in your marketplace for a long time, I think 20 years or something.
14 years, yeah.
Yeah, 14 years. So I would open that call with something along the lines of, Mitch, I know that you have a long and successful career in Florida, Cocoa Beach, with your independent brokerage. Can you share with me, what is it that you like about being an independent?
Okay.
Right? And so when you do that, it kind of, it's almost like the Columbo close. It sort of disarms them, right? And they all of a sudden go, well, wait a second, this guy's not going to try to tell me that I'm inferior because I have this independent. He's actually letting me tell my story and why I've managed to succeed for 14 years, right? And so, and then when you do tell me what you like about it, then I'm going to say something along the lines of, well, this is what I heard you say. So you like having autonomy and you like being able to build your brand. And then I might say, so are you aware that you could continue to build your brand and scale it on the EXP platform without broker liability that you have today and the financial risk that would be involved in expanding throughout your state and then nationally and then ultimately internationally? A person that has achieved what you've achieved at an independent level, which incidentally, most independent brokers that I talk to have not been able to get themselves beyond units. Oh geez, that's not a Freudian slip, I promise. That's 65 people, agents, right? And so that's hard to do, right?
Yep.
But then to be able to take that and then scale it in a dynamic way, that's what I feel like is being afforded to us. When I open those KWs that you talked to about, every single one of those, I had to come up with $250,000 in capital, sign at least a 5-year lease, sometimes with personal guarantees or significant letters of credit, lease all kinds of other equipment,
Right.
and take enormous risks, not to mention the broker liability, okay? I feel like I have at least as big, if not a bigger opportunity here with EXP with none of that associated risk. And I've got 7 incredibly successful people supporting my growth in that process.
Right.
But back to you.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. Most common objections and how you handle them. Like what's the top 2 or 3 that you get?
Okay. I love my manager. I would never leave him.
Okay.
Okay. And so my response to that would be, wow, that is wonderful to hear. What is it that you most appreciate about your manager? And what is their name, by the way? Okay. And so, and I'll let them talk. And then I'll say, well, this is what I heard you say. Okay. And so, I know that it's wonderful to have a good relationship with the people with whom you work, right? I reached out to you because I believe in you and you're somebody that I would like to support. I guess what I would say to you is that as wonderful as your manager is one person. And in no fault of theirs, it's just really hard for one person to manage an office, run the operations, support the agents, and recruit. Okay, that person will typically have 3 jobs, right? And it's tough to chase 2 rabbits through a field. And obviously they're managing to maintain a good relationship with you. My question to you is that what's best for you and your family, right? In other words, are you achieving the goals that you have and dreams that you have for your family, which I believe you're ultimately most loyal to? Is that a fair statement? Right? And they'll say yes, and I'll say, well, then let's not, if this comes to where I think it will go, Mitch, I think your manager honestly will want to take a look at EXP, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves. What I'm interested in right now is you and making sure that we put you on a trajectory so that your retirement is fully funded, your family is taken care of, and then one of the next things we would do is present this opportunity to your manager so that they can enjoy those same benefits. Okay. If it's appropriate for you. Is that fair enough?
That's great.
Okay. Now, the next objection would be, got to have bricks and mortar.
Great.
Okay. And I would say to that response is, me too. I love working in an office, and no reason why you can't do that in the EXP model. One of the things that you'll be happy to hear is that we have a national strategic alliance with Regis so that you're able to meet clients there. Many of the agents that like to work out of offices will sublet. My business partner sublets from a lender, by the way, paying less than they paid at the KW that they came from for superior space. And so don't let that be a hindrance to you at all. If you want to have bricks and mortar, I would just suggest, by the way, I don't know who came up with the crazy idea that it was intelligent to have 2 real estate agents that compete in the same market be in the same building, okay? Right. So if you're going to go to bricks and mortar, if you're going to go to an office, my golly, why don't you go to a building where there are CPAs, financial advisors, attorneys with whom you can network and exchange professional referrals. And so the nominal cost that you'd pay for that space will be way more made up for in the referral business that you get. I could show you how to get 4 referrals from a CPA alone, right? I mean, what is the average sales price in your market? You know, then I would go on that time. Okay, well, there's $50,000. I think we can get you a pretty nice office for $50,000 a year.
Right.
Okay, and we still haven't gotten you referrals from the financial advisor or the attorney. Okay. Another objection is I just, I just can't make a move right now. I'm just too busy, right?
Hear that a lot.
And so I would just say, Mitch, may I be honest with you? And you'll say, well, yeah. And I'll say, well, I'm calling you because you're too busy. Okay. And by the way, that's not uncommon in our business. A lot of people get in this business because they think they're going to be able to control their time. What they learn is that real estate happens to be pretty consuming.
Right.
And it doesn't often enable you to plan for the future and ensure your family's security, to be able to eventually retire from the business in a manner that your family has become accustomed to. And if at some point here, you don't take the time to really take an honest look at that, it's going to sneak up on you. Okay? So I'm not asking you to move to EXP. Okay? I'm just asking you, is your being busy having you on the trajectory that is going to ensure the security of you and your family?
Okay.
Okay?
Love it.
Okay, so those are your top three.
Yeah,
You have a
great.
question or two?
Yep, let's get to. So I'm trying. I got a whole bunch of them here, but I'm going to give you just two more, just because we time wise, right?
Yeah.
Best follow up techniques. Do you follow up through text, email, phone calls? You talk to someone today. I call these people internet leads, right? You capture, you nurture, and you bring them into EXP at some point. There's a process, just like an internet lead. What's your follow up?
Yeah. Okay. So first thing to know is that if you're following up, there was a failure in the system. Okay. And what I mean by that is that, remember cardinal rule number 1, do not leave an appointment without another appointment. Right. Ideally, you want it to be a progression. A phone call to an in-person meeting is a progression. An in-person meeting to a phone call is a regression.
Right. Okay.
A phone call to an email is a regression. Okay. An email to a text, by the way, is a progression. But the thing is that I can't emphasize how important, if you do not make an appointment after the appointment, when you do finally follow up and get back with them, you've got to start the recruiting process all over again.
Right.
Okay. So it's not that you won't get them, but it's going to be 2 and 3 and 4 times as much work. Okay. Right. And by the way, somebody else might talk to them in the meanwhile.
Right.
Okay. So what I would do is, but here's the thing. They're going to tell you, some people will just shut you down hard. Hey, Don, not now. Okay. And by the way, that is exactly what I told Brent Gove. It was not the right timing for me. Okay. And so Brent Gove, by the way, followed up with me when he started breaking $100,000 a month. That was pretty classic.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So should you do that? I think that would be a good time to do a good follow-up. Right. Maybe even just when you break 10 grand. Okay. Right. So I would certainly put something in a CRM, right? Okay. And by the way, do not tell them, okay, hey, Mitch, well, then I'll call you in 90 days. Because if you don't call in 90 days, you're an idiot, okay? Right. Just say, you know what, Mitch, it sounds like you're really happy. I actually respect that. Right. And so I'll let you get back at it. And should your circumstances change, why don't you just reach out to me and let me know that you'd like to hear more about EXP? Okay, is that fair enough? Right. Okay, so I put it back on you, but then I'm going to put it in my CRM. And then what I'm going to do is there's going to be an event in Orlando or something, and I'm going to say, hey, Mitch, there's an event we've got coming up in Orlando in June. I was thinking about you. What do you say we just meet there? Worst case, we'll do a little masterminding and have a good time. And that would give you a little bit of exposure. I'm sure you're still happy where you are, right? Right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to end. I got a couple of really good ones here, but I know with time-wise we're struggling there. Well, I'll give you 2 questions. And you answer which one you think is the most relevant one. How's that?
Okay.
So, what do you do when someone becomes non-responsive, which I think you kind of just answered? That's one of them. And then the other one is, do you tailor your presentation differently for, a RE/MAX agent, an Indy agent, a KW agent, of those different, which You pick which one you want to answer.
Okay. So I'll answer the latter because I had pretty much answered the former.
Right.
And I would say, excuse me, during the call, I am going to be sprinkling them with questions to learn what their circumstance is in their current company. Yesterday, I was talking with a Sotheby's agent. I said, now, at Sotheby's, that's a Realty company, so you do have a franchise fee, right? And she says, oh, yeah, it's 6%. And then I go off and I start talking about some other things. And then I say, well, you know, you're a senior agent. You probably have a pretty good split, huh? Maybe 80, 90%. She goes, yeah, actually, it's 85. And great, you know. And then I talk about some other things. And then I'll go, and you know, what's your office setup? You know, and then she tells me and the point, and I say, so, and this particular person, fortunately, is recovering from cancer, but, you know, so she had an off year last year, but she's been in the business 16 years. And she says, and she had been at Remax and Coldwell Banker. And I says, you know, well, Kathy, what do you reasonably think that you'll do in business in the next 12 months? And she said about 10 million. And so I did the math, and I determined that the savings at our company would be about $34,000. And I said, you know, that's not insignificant. I say, but what I would have you consider is that we're about to have a correction in the market. Would you, I mean, you've been around long enough to see the cycles. Would you roughly agree with that? And she said, yeah. And I said, so what I would actually contend is that what you may want to do is use a portion of that 34,000 savings to ensure that you achieve the goal that you want, because now all of a sudden you've got almost $3,000 more in your marketing budget with which to work. Okay? You don't need to spend all of it, but what do you say you spend half of the savings? Will that not then give you a much greater chance of achieving your goal? And she says, yeah, you know, and so that made sense to her, right? And so I'm basically showing her how there's free money available. And also maybe, you know, I mean, she is coming back from a pretty tough life event. She might be thinking to herself, geez, you know, I wonder if I can make it in my current circumstance, right? So it creates reasonable doubt without attacking Sotheby's, right? And I just say, hey, in other words, usually people see change as taking risk. I'm suggesting to her that lack of change in this circumstance actually exposes her to market risk that she may not be prepared to address.
Right. Great.
Okay.
All right. I know I said one more, but I'm going to ask you one more because I just popped in my head. It's like the biggest question I get, and I forgot to ask you it.
Do it.
So everybody asks me the exact same question. So what do I send? I talked to somebody, and I've heard send a video. I've heard send a PowerPoint. I've heard get on a Zoom call. I've heard don't send anything. What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Well, you should send what's relevant to them. Okay. And so do it all. Okay. And really good people are going to take 3, 4, maybe 5 appointments. And what you want is you want to give them homework between every appointment that's then going to give a reason for the next contact, right? So lots of times, Tom will book appointments for me and have a link in there for a video for them to review in preparation for the call. And then what I'll do is then send a PowerPoint as a next step. And then it may get more granular. Like I talked to an agent from KW the other day, and I didn't talk about our value proposition at all, but we were talking about this market correction. So I sent her, in this context, some market data, actually, for her to review. So it's just send something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Send something of value, and also something that will then trigger the desire to then discuss it 3 days from now.
Right. Perfect. Perfect. Don, thank you so much for doing this. You know, the beauty of this company to me is this is what we do, right? We all help each other. I mean, you don't have any benefit from helping me, and as I don't have benefit helping you financially, but we're helping this company grow into something that, frankly, in my lifetime, I've never experienced. And I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And in fact, by the way, we are business partners. Every single one of us is a stockholder in EXP.
Sure.
And I wouldn't do this for everybody, but you actually started with the contribution because I reached out to you because you were an independent broker, and one of my guys in my team is attempting to attract an independent broker that was approximately your size, and you were so gracious to be with us. So,
Right.
you're right. I mean, it's an extraordinary culture that I have never experienced in real estate, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah,
So
me too.
thanks for having me.
I thank you everybody for attending today, and I hope this helped. I know it certainly helped me, and I'm going to make some changes like right now. So take care, everybody.